Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sunset TV. I am Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. The month of May has been significant for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. You would recall it was on the 26th of May 2014 that he began the first tenure of his Prime Ministership, and then he was sworn in as Prime Minister for the second time on the 30th of May 2019. Now, as he is set to complete 8 years in office as the Prime Minister of the largest democracy, a book tracing the contours of his fascinating journey was released on the 11th of May. Titled Modi at 20, Dreams Meeting Delivery, the book is a compilation of chapters authored by eminent intellectuals and domain experts. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu launched the book in the National Capital on Wednesday in the presence of Union Home Minister Amit Shah and also External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. Hailing him as a phenomenon at the national level, the Vice President said, over the last 20 years, Prime Minister Modi has carved out a unique place in the history of post-independent India, first as the Chief Minister of Gujarat for about 13 years and over the last 8 years as the Prime Minister of the country. So what has been the Prime Minister's experiential journey? What has been his governance mantra? What makes his leadership transformational and unique? These are some aspects that the book encompasses in the form of writings by several eminent personalities. And it gives me immense pleasure today to welcome some of them on our program on Sunset TV. Let me begin by introducing our viewers to Mr. Pradeep Gupta. You all may be well aware he's a well-known cephalogist and currently is the Chairman and Managing Director of Axis My India. He has authored a chapter in the book, Modi at 20, Dreams Meeting Delivery. Mr. Gupta, it's an immense pleasure to have you on Sunset TV today.
Thank you very much for having me here.
And joining us virtually is Mr. Akhilesh Mishra. He is Chief Executive Officer, Bluecraft Digital Foundation, which has edited and compiled the book presenting an incisive analysis on Prime Minister Modi's journey of transformational leadership. Mr. Mishra, pleasure having you on the program as well.
In fact, for having me.
Let me begin the program today by asking you it's a very interesting book that you have compiled and edited. So before we get into the contents and details of the Prime Minister's insightful journey, what interests me is the title particularly of the book, Dreams Meeting Delivery. So if you could share with us and our viewers some more insights about the book, how you came up with the title, and of course the experience of having worked with so many eminent personalities on the Prime Minister's journey.
So thank you for having me. The title is very interesting. When we came up with the title, we did not realize that the Honorable Vice President will put it so brilliantly as he did today in his speech, where he said that many people can dream, but what matters is that can you deliver on those dreams?
Absolutely.
And I think if you have to summarize the governance of 2 decades of governance of Prime Minister Modi, then in one phrase we can say that dreams have met reality. And that is the title of the book. Now, what do we mean by that when we say dreams meet reality? So you see, what were our aspirations as citizens of the largest democracy in the world? That we should reclaim our civilizational position when we are one of the leading nations in the world. Simultaneously, when it comes to modern technological advances, scientific advances, we should be counted as among the leading nations in the world. And you would see, just to give you a few examples, in 2011, India's digital payments was 1/4 the volume of China. In 2016, this government launched the UPI. And in 2021, the year just that ended, India is now twice the volume of China in digital payments. So in 10 years, we have not just bridged the deficit with China from 1/4, now we are twice the volume of China. And mind you, China does not have a population of less than India. So it's not a function of population, but it's a function of adoption. And when Prime Minister Modi started pushing for this in 2016, 2017, many people said, this is not possible. You are dreaming something which is not reality. And we have done it in 2-3 years. We are now in 2021, 40% of all the digital payments in the world were done in India. So this is just one example of what we mean when we say that if we, as a people of a country of this large size, youthful nation, if we have some dreams, then Prime Minister has shown the way that it can be done. Now, this was a very important book, and we realized that it's impossible for one person, one organization, no matter how well versed with the work of Prime Minister, to be able to put all things into the correct perspective. And that is why We requested very, very eminent people who are experts in their own subjects. One of them is in your studio today. Pradeep ji is by far the most respected cephalogist in the country. Similarly, other people we requested to contribute chapters in their own respective domains. And the Honorable Home Minister, the Honorable External Affairs Minister, the Honorable National Security Advisor, very eminent economist, agricultural scientist, people who write in the cultural domain, political domain, they have been contributed. It was our immense pleasure and honor to have been able to compile this book.
All right, Mr. Gupta, coming to you for your perspective. So before we begin talking in detail about, the key strengths of the Prime Minister, one important factor that has contributed to him becoming the leader that he is today has been the fact that for the last 20 years, he has never lost an election. So 3 times as Chief Minister, 2 times as Prime Minister. What is it that helps him connect to the people in a way that no other leader has managed to, within the state first in Gujarat and then to the whole of India? So he's never lost an election, never been a part of the opposition. What is it that helps him build that connect even now and emerge stronger each time he faces an election?
So let me tell you, my subject is changing election and electioneering forever by Modi. And when you ask what is there special when Modi connect with the people, so we need to understand first the people mindset. People make their choices, take their decision, whatever they want to take their decision purely based on their needs, expectations and aspirations. And when it comes to election or electing a leader or a government for that matter, these are the needs which Modi ji has understood over the years of his connect by traveling throughout the nation, meeting them, and most importantly, living like a common man. You know, when you do so, you get very close to those problems, issues, expectation, aspirations. Now, just to tell you, just imagine, who doesn't know in the country, you must have seen so many pictures in television and elsewhere, the women carrying water on their heads, the smoke-full kitchens, mostly at the mercy of men. I am talking about the financial independence. You know, opening account and sending money through DBT is actually you are empowering women. And can you imagine, you, Tina, yourself is a woman, and particularly when it comes to, there has been a Indira Awas Yojana for the poor for the ages, but what Modi ji has changed, he made sure that women, the house name should be in the proprietary of women, even if it is matter as a joint account. So all these problems, and particularly bottom of the pyramid, he understood so well, and whenever he got the chance to address them, he addressed at the best.
Absolutely. So, I mean, Mr. Mishra, the schemes, when we talk about the Prime Minister's, tenureship, if we look back when he was the Chief Minister and now that he's been the Prime Minister for the last 8 years, the core, the thrust of his working style, of his functioning style has been driven by development, to say. And this, not just in terms of implementation, but the scale, because we talk about a country as vast as ours. And as Mr. Gupta rightly said, so from women-centric development, he is now also focused on women-led development. So what are some of the key achievements, if we talk about particularly the women-led development that has contributed to Narendra Modi becoming the leader today, the globally accepted leader today that he has become?
So, you see, this journey starts from Gujarat. And as the Home Minister said in his speech today, when Prime Minister Modi became the Chief Minister of Gujarat, the enrollment ratio of girl child into the schools was hovering around 65 to 70%. The dropout ratio, when the girls used to reach this age of 13 or 14, it was almost in the mid-30s. So imagine 30% girls dropping out, not completing their education when they're just 13, 14, which means they would have been in class 7th, 8th. So one of the first programs that Prime Minister started was the Kanya Kelavani program. the government used to go to, the entire Gujarat government used to go to the villages for 3 days in the peak of the summer in mid-June, and everybody was mobilized to get the girls to school A to solve the enrollment problem. And B, when the parents were mobilized, from that came the learning that many girls used to drop out because there were not separate toilets for them when they used to reach the particular age of puberty at 13, 14, and they needed separate toilets. So that learning then eventually we have seen multiplied into the national scale into creating these toilets, more than 10 crore, 11 crore. So this Kanya Kilavani program, you would be surprised within a few years, the enrollment ratio became 100%, from 70% to 100%, and dropout ratio reduced from 30% to less than 1%. So once this learning, this experiential learning, this practical learning of how to actually implement programs came to Prime Minister, who was then the Chief Minister, and when he assumed office at the national level, and if you look at it now, 8 years down the line, you would see that there is a scheme at every age of a woman. You mean there is a life cycle you can draw, that irrespective of which age you are, there is some determined government intervention which helps you. So you are a girl child, for example, then there is the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. If you are just born, so that the sex ratio improves. And you would have seen recently a data has come out that for the first time, the sex ratio has turned positive in favor of the girl child. 1,020 women to 1,000 men. It has improved in states which were significantly laggard in this, for example, Haryana or Rajasthan. If you are a girl child of the age 2 years, 3 years, there is a financial saving program for you. So Kanya Samriddhi Yojana. So that when you reach the age of 18 or 19, there is financial savings for you. So you don't have to abandon your education. You can get yourself educated. You reach the age of college going, then there are special scholarships. You reach the stage of career, then if you want to be an entrepreneur, there is Mudra loan. 34, 35 crore loans, out of which 70% are women. You want, there is maternity, then there is maternity leave has been increased from 12 weeks to 26 weeks. So the point is, for every stage in the life of a woman, there is some determined government action which has succeeded. This is because, as you said, Prime Minister does not believe in women development, but he believes in women-led development. Class barriers have been broken, be it in defense forces, getting into the top positions, ministers in the union cabinet, women getting elected into legislative assemblies or parliament, down to the panchayat level. So this is a holistic development, and in my own view, one of the biggest contributions of Prime Minister, that he has brought women to the forefront of not just participation, but actually decision making and policy formulation.
Absolutely. And besides that, Mr. Gupta, what has worked for the Prime Minister is he's turned these development initiatives into mass movements where the people feel part of the movement, where people feel that they are bringing about change, and that particularly has yielded results across all of these states if we talk about. For somebody, and as the Home Minister pointed out, for somebody who did not even have an experience of running panchayats, comes to run a state which has been marred by an earthquake. So, of course, a big challenge back then. And again, as Prime Minister, he's been faced with a crisis, an unprecedented crisis, which the world has never seen before, in the COVID pandemic. But he has sailed through successfully, making sure that he comes across as a leader that everyone connects with, that everyone trusts. How do you see this phenomenon?
I'll tell you, there is only one word to describe this: living up to the expectations, be it expectations of the people, be it expectation of the chair he's sitting on, be it CM or be it PM, or be it the expectations of the government, the government department. He makes sure to fulfill all of them. I mean, that's the beauty. Right from whether it's a corporate matter or whether it's foreign affairs or whether it's the security of the country and countrymen is the core of his thought process. And he has got only one thing, and there is 100% selfishness. There is no self. It is always the country first, the countrymen first. And if you see the recent Denmark visit, for that matter, I have noticed 8 times in the span of 2 minutes, he has literally begged with the people over there, the Indians, क्या आप मेरे लिए एक काम करोगे, मेरी एक बात सुनोगे, मेरा एक काम करोगे, and you know what he has asked for? यदि आप 5 लोगों को जो इंडियंस नहीं हैं उनको इंडिया जाने के लिए, if you can inspire and push them, where is the election here? He's definitely not doing this for the election, right?
Absolutely.
Now what are he doing there? Can you imagine? Even there, he's trying to do something good for the country when you get the foreign visitors and travelers and you spread the word of mouth about India, the beauty of India, the strength of India, why you should go to the India. That is what he's trying to create, as you are saying, no, public moment, people's moment. This is what it is, people moment.
Absolutely, and I think this has worked particularly well over the last few years, Mr. Mishra. Initially, there was a lot of criticism that the Prime Minister is, is on a flight mode all the time. He is traveling to countries, but on the ground, that has, of course, made a change. And for example, I've had the opportunity to interview some of the foreign delegates who visited India for the first time, and they said they had a completely different perception about India. And when they came here, it was difficult for them to believe because it was a completely different picture they were seeing. Over the last few years, what has the government in the leadership of Prime Minister Modi been successful in doing, in changing the perception about India, about Indians globally?
So you see, I mean, there can be an expansive answer of this, but to give you briefly, because you have a limited time and I also unfortunately have to leave. Internationally, 2014, when this government came into power, you remember there were headlines called Fragile Five. 5 countries were designated as Fragile 5 countries who within themselves will actually pull down the government, the world economy. China had transgressed into Indian territory in 2013, and the defense minister then had to say in parliament that what can we do? Look at 2022 now. We are in 2022. 2022, even after such a devastating pandemic impact worldwide, India would have the fastest growing major economy in the world. That's one. How has this been done? Because of economic management. Second, you look at the way the world has thought that it would spend its way through the pandemic. So they printed money endlessly and distributed. And the world over, say in Europe, in US, they are facing the worst inflation in the last 40, 50 years. From their inflation has risen from 1% to 8%, 9%. Our inflation is also relatively high right now, but our inflation has gone from 4% to 6% because the economic management was such that we will manage the economy, we will manage the livelihood, but we'll also manage the pandemic. So the world is now looking at India as an economic stabilizer in the world instead of a fragile 5. China, you see what happened in Doklam when China tried something with respect to Bhutan. In 2020, we responded in Galwan. In the current crisis, to just give you one example, in the Russian-NATO war, there was immense expectation or pressure, some people would call it, but India has stood its ground, that we will have our national interest first, everything else is secondary. And if it is on our national interest to engage with Ukraine, to engage with the United States, to engage with Russia, and to engage with anybody else, then it is our right and we will do it, and we have continued to do it. Ultimately, the world has turned around. And I will tell you, there was an article in New York Times where it says, or maybe the CNN, where they said, how did India manage to get away with it? Because earlier it did not used to happen. India said, this is in our national interest, we will take our own decision. So internationally, perceptionally, one would say that India's stature has risen significantly. The word of India has a new meaning. When India takes a decision, the world notices it. It changes world narratives. And a lot of this has to do with something you mentioned, that PM travels a lot to the foreign countries, the relationship that he builds with foreign leaders. For example, while evacuating our citizens, We
Certainly. So,
evacuated 22,000 citizens.
as you say, Mr. Mishra, of course, there's been a lot of transformation
Right,
in every
right.
sector. If we look within the country, if we look in terms of internal security as well as global politics, the stature of India has certainly increased. The Prime Minister, of course, has given a lot of hope and inspiration, and those are signs of a great leader. But if we talk about the internal politics, Mr. Gupta, elections in a democracy are the most vital. The Prime Minister, of course, has been winning election after election. What do you anticipate for the 2024 elections? I mean, it'll be the third election that the Prime Minister will be fighting, as Prime Minister.
It's too early to comment on that.
But
I mean, more than
as somebody who's been, reading the pulse of the nation in terms of
I don't see
elections.
problem as of now. What is important also in election, what is the alternate? What is the alternate before the people of India? So I don't see an alternate at this point of time. That much I can see, but still there are two big years ahead. So let's see.
But so far, it's been, the Prime Minister has been performing extremely well, and that's what we've been discussing so far on the program as well. Over the last 8 years, the performance has been incredibly, up to the expectations of the people, in your own words. But I take it as a yes, because there is no alternate enough. Okay, Mr. Mishra, one last question to you on how do you look at the future? Because after the Prime Minister, he is one leader that the country has not had in several decades. After Prime Minister, can we expect somebody within the BJP to imbibe the same kind of qualities, to take India to the vision that the Prime Minister keeps talking about? That is something that can't happen in just a decade. But to have a global stature, to be the Vishwa Guru, who do you see as successor to the Prime Minister?
So first of all, Prime Minister is here to stay for a very long time. So there is no question of a successor. Second, I don't speak on behalf of the BJP, but I think to answer your question differently, the kind of leadership that Prime Minister has given to the country, and that way it has expectations has changed from the people regarding the leadership. I am sure that whenever the time comes, maybe a decade from now or whenever, somebody who aspires to be a leader of the country will have to follow in the footsteps of Prime Minister Modi, because he has changed the benchmark of what a national leader is. And whoever fills those shoes, I am not somebody who can crystal gauge. Pradeep ji is better placed to answer this question. But whoever is there will definitely have to follow in the footsteps of a leader who only thinks and works for the country, and not for himself or for his political party or for his family, but
certainly
only work for the country.
He's taught India. He's in fact dared to dream and had the ability to implement them as well. Mr.
I would say when it comes to the alternate, the next leadership, whether it's within the BJP or outside the BJP, I would say only one thing: very, very big shoes to fill in.
Absolutely.
Very big shoes to
Absolutely.
fill in.
Because
I can't see anybody matching even somewhere near to this phenomena. The kind of understanding of country and countrymen he has is unparalleled. I
agree. So, I mean, forget the opposition parties within the BJP. Big shoes to fill. So, let's see how it happens. Yeah. But for the moment, the Prime Minister is at the helm, fulfilling expectations of the people. And the positive thing is that he has managed to change the Chalta Hai attitude that prevailed for long in India. So, from Chalta Hai to Badalna Hai is, of course, something that India and the Indians have been working towards under the leadership of Prime Minister. Let's see what happens in 2024. Mr. Gupta has given a vague answer, but of course we understand there's no strong alternative. So let's see what happens in 2024, 2 years to go for that. But with that, I'll have to wrap up the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mishra and Mr. Gupta, for joining us on the program and sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. So that's it from us on this edition of Perspective. Thank you to all my viewers as well for your time. See you again next time. Thank you once again.